In 1965, a young boy named Maurice Bezolt found himself stuck in a cave crevice with no way out, but was luckily rescued. 44 years later, medical student John Jones faced a similar fate when he got trapped upside down in a narrow passage at Nutty Putty Cave and sadly passed away. Both incidents were caused by the same mistake of crawling headfirst into the unknown. But what if exploring caves by entering feet first could prevent such accidents? This is the gripping tale of Neil Moss, a 20-year-old man who descended into a dark, suffocating shaft with his feet leading the way. However, the outcome was not what he expected. Neil's journey took a dangerous turn as he got stuck in an uncharted tunnel. Rescue teams fought against darkness and mud, leaving a lasting reminder of the dangers that lie beneath the Earth's surface. On March 22, 1959, a group of 8 cavers embarked on an expedition into Peak Cavern in Derbyshire, England. Among them was Neil Moss, a philosophy student at Balliol College, Oxford. Known for his love of exploration, he joined members of the British Speleological Association in a thrilling adventure. Their aim was to explore a passage half a mile from the cave entrance and investigate a fissure discovered in a side chamber just 2 weeks earlier. The cave presented its own challenges, with a descent of about 1,000 feet through a maze of hidden caves. Upon their entrance, the cavers were met with the daunting mucky duck section, a tight and wet squeeze that often filled with water after rainfall. This led to the Boulder Passage, a relatively easier part of the journey that required navigating through irregular obstructions. About 150 metres into the passage, they faced a 3-metre climb on the north wall of the upper gallery. On one side, above a steep, muddy scree, was Pickering Passage, a narrow crawl that demanded a combination of kneeling and full-length manoeuvring. It ended with a tricky bend and a muddy sump. Above them, the eye hole, just big enough for a human body to pass through, presented the next challenge. After wading through a thigh-deep, muddy pool, the passage opened up into a beautifully decorated stalagmite chamber, now known as Moss Chamber. Neil was familiar with the chamber and the tight shaft that had been discovered earlier. His excitement to explore the breathtaking chamber in the fissure was palpable. The team spent over an hour crawling, elbowing and climbing through the cave, facing a challenging adventure 1,000 feet below ground that required immense energy and effort. Upon reaching the stalagmite chamber, they took a moment to admire the natural beauty that surrounded them. Despite their fatigue from the demanding journey, the group eagerly approached the fissure in the ground, curious about what lay beyond. No one had explored the entire length of the shaft, but they approximated its depth to be around 40 feet. The shaft deviated slightly from the vertical for 12 feet, then twisted into a challenging corkscrew before leading to a 10-foot long inclined bedding plane and finally dropping vertically for another 18 feet. At approximately 3:30 p.m, the group lowered a flexible sided ladder designed for accessing confined and hard-to-reach areas. Moss initiated his descent into the unknown, carefully navigating his way down. He did not use a belay, as it was thought that the narrowness of the crevice would prevent him from sliding. Shortly after starting his descent, he encountered the extremely narrow, confined and claustrophobic corkscrew compression. Despite the difficulties, he successfully manoeuvred through it, feeling a sense of achievement. However, he was unaware of what lay ahead in the next few feet. Throughout his descent, he maintained constant communication with the team, reassuring them that everything was going as planned. After overcoming the corkscrew twist, Moss reached the rest of the shaft. As he continued descending, he noticed irregularities in his footing. Initially, he thought he could work around them, as he had in the corkscrew section. After some time trying to move forward, he realised that a boulder was blocking his path. Knowing he couldn't dislodge the boulder and navigate within the confined space, he made the tough decision to climb back up. At that moment, Moss discovered himself incapable of raising his feet adequately to climb the ladder. He found himself wedged in an oval crevice, measuring only 18 inches wide, and called out for help from his companions. Despite their attempts to lift Neil a few feet by tugging on the ladder, it got stuck between the cave wall and Moss's body. His pleas for assistance reverberated from the depths of the hole as he realised he was trapped, unable to move in any direction. Such challenges are not unusual in caving, and initially Moss's friends assumed that rescuing him would be a simple task of lowering ropes and pulling him to safety. However, they soon grasped the gravity of the situation. A lightweight handline was lowered to aid his ascent, but multiple efforts to hoist him up with rope failed, as each rope broke or tore on the rocky surface. This likely caused Moss to panic, and as he tried to climb higher, he got stuck just below the spiral. Unable to bend his legs to grip the ladder or flex his elbows to ascend further, he found himself in a dangerous situation. Realising the urgency of the matter, some of the cavers left to seek additional help. In a matter of hours, volunteers from all over England gathered at Peak Cavern, driven by a shared resolve to rescue Neil. Hundreds of volunteers, along with support from the Royal Air Force, police and even the Navy, came together to aid in the rescue mission. Just a few hours after Neil became trapped, the rescuers encountered another unexpected challenge. By then, the air in the shaft had become heavily contaminated with carbon dioxide as Moss's body obstructed the airflow. His confusion became apparent and his actions started to become more erratic. Observers noticed that he was less willing to cooperate, showing little concern for the seriousness of his predicament, and even suggesting that his rescuers should leave and get something to eat. Skilled cavers were sent down the shaft to reach Neil Moss, but each one was forced to retreat due to the toxic air. 3 of the volunteers actually passed out while trying to descend. Eventually, the 4th volunteer, Ron Peters, was able to secure a rope around Moss's chest. However, when they began to pull him up, they realised that it was making it harder for him to breathe. News of his situation quickly spread to nearby villages, and experienced cavers, known for their courage and ingenuity, rushed to Peak Cavern equipped with ropes, oxygen masks and makeshift stretchers. They were determined to navigate the dangerous shaft, but the journey proved to be extremely challenging. The narrow passage, barely wider than a shoulder, twisted and turned, causing feelings of claustrophobia. The air, filled with Neil's expelled breath, made it difficult to breathe. One by one they emerged, defeated, struggling to breathe, with red and stinging eyes. The Royal Air Force delivered oxygen cylinders and specialised equipment to the site. When the oxygen arrived at 12:30 a.m, there was hope that it would help revive Moss and aid in his rescue. Although the air quality was slightly improved, it was still not enough. The decision was made to continue pumping oxygen throughout the night, with a plan to send in a nimble, experienced caver capable of navigating the narrow shaft first thing in the morning. On the second day, in the early hours, June Bailey, an 18-year-old, arrived with a strong determination to venture into the depths of the cave. She suggested the idea of breaking Moss's collarbones if necessary in order to free his shoulders and create enough space to pull him out. However, despite the valiant efforts of the renowned Bailey and other volunteers, they were forced to retreat due to the presence of toxic CO2 fumes. Almost 24 hours had passed since Moss had entered the cave, yet his laboured breathing could still be heard by early Monday afternoon. Despite the dire circumstances, the team remained resolute in their determination to persevere. They attempted to clear the foul air from the shaft by using compressed air cylinders. The walls, ladder and rope were covered in mud, making it difficult to even locate Moss. All that could be seen was a muddy obstruction far below, with Moss firmly wedged in a immovable position, one arm trapped under a ladder rung as he futilely tried to free himself. Meanwhile, the continuous rainfall posed a threat of flooding in the Mucky Duck area of Peak Cavern. As a precautionary measure, it was advised to evacuate for the safety of everyone involved. Once the rain subsided, accompanied by an RAF doctor who had joined the rescue mission, they returned to the top of the shaft where they had last heard Moss breathing. However, this time there was no sound. On Tuesday, March 24th, 1959, Neil Moss was officially declared deceased. Dr. Hugh Kidd recounted this as the sole occasion where he pronounced death without physically observing the patient. Throughout this distressing event, Eric Moss, Neil's father, patiently waited at the entrance of the tunnel. It was Eric who insisted that his son's body be left in place before anybody else risked their lives. Contrary to popular belief, loose rocks from the chamber floor, not concrete as commonly stated, were used to seal the lower portion of the shaft. The adorned and decorated chamber that contains the tiny shaft eventually became Neil Moss's final resting place. The tragic tale of Neil Moss garnered international attention, making headlines in newspapers across the United States, Australia and the United Kingdom. Presently, the stalagmite chamber is known as the Moss Chamber, serving as a memorial to the brave young caver who met an untimely demise.